Okay, so this will be a video kind of after the fact, after I've already done all what I'm going to show you what I was going to do. But just to kind of give you guys a bit of a background, what I was doing for a while to get power into my garage here, as I'm building it, I'd still want to use it. I was just stretching a extension cord from the house into the garage here, and so I only had one plug for all the things I wanted to use. So switching from machine to machine and light to light and trying to do a few little things that way, but eventually obviously that's not sustainable. And so I obviously had already planned to put electricity into the shop, and so when I built the foundation, this conduit was poured right into the footing, and so the outlet to that is outside. So that conduit is put in as a protective shield for an electrical cable. That way I could put it underground under the driveway and run a cable through it all the way. And so you'll see some of the pictures I put up showing the process of how we dug a trench underneath the driveway here all the way to the garage, and the conduit is right underneath here, right under my foot is where it connects this, so it came out of the footing right here. If you didn't know, that lower pad is called a footing, right? It's like a foot that sticks out from the foundation wall. So footing and foundation, and then the building is on top of that. So the conduit was actually put right to the lowest part under the footing. Another thing about the conduit, especially when it runs underneath the driveway, it has to be 3 feet below grade. And so I'm still adding more dirt on top of here, building up this driveway eventually. But right now, it's probably about 18 inches below the grade that exists right now. So another foot on top of that, and I'll be okay.
Here's the electrical panel I pulled off the internet.
So you see the picture I got off the internet to kind of give me a tutorial how to wire in a panel for 220 volts. And here's my finished product. And so you'll see I have 2 hot wires coming into the breaker. It's a 100 amp breaker, okay, and my neutral wire goes into the neutral bus bar, okay, and my ground goes into the back panel there, which is connected to the ground bus bars on the other side. And so that was a bit of a learning curve for me, you know, once I pulled the cable through. Only that it's electricity, you want to be careful, obviously. So I was fairly confident with that situation. So the reason why this is 220 volt is because there's 2 hot wires going into a panel. Okay, so one side has 110, the other side has 110. So when you combine the two, it's 220, and you'll see there are pairs of, I don't even know what those are called, but that's where the electricity comes into each breaker. Okay, so when you just have one breaker, you're only tying into 110 volts, 110 volts of electricity, right? Because that's just attached to one side. Whereas if you get a larger breaker, okay, here I have a 40 amp breaker, and this is for 220 volts, up to 220 volts, right? You can do 40 amps at 110 or 40 amps at 220, depending on how many wires you have coming off the cable that you're attaching to this. Okay, so the breaker goes onto these bars, right? And when I want to run just a 120 circuit, I have my hot wire going into the breaker. That's where the main electricity comes out. This is a red wire, but it typically would be a white wire going into my neutral bar, right? Just connected down here to the neutral, right? And then my copper wire going into my ground. Okay, so that was just so I could have one little plug so far off of my breaker box. Okay, so this eliminated the need to stretch an extension cord, an exterior extension cord, which is really nice. Just cleans things up, and it's the beginning of all the wiring I'm going to do in the shop and upstairs.